He uncovered millions in corporate fraud, but missed the one betrayal that destroyed his world. When forensic accountant Leonard Caldwell discovers his wife has been embezzling from him for years, the man who lived by numbers must unravel a web of lies, power, and revenge, not just to reclaim his fortune, but to reclaim himself. In a world where trust is currency and betrayal leaves deeper scars than balance sheets, how do you audit a broken heart? Leonard Kessler believed that numbers never lied. As a forensic accountant specializing in financial fraud, he had built a career around this belief. At 42, Leonard was the go-to man when billion-dollar mergers needed scrutiny, or when corporate embezzlement threatened to sink entire organizations. His days were long, his spreadsheets meticulous, and his reputation unblemished. But it wasn't his career that made him proud. It was Dana. Dana was the sort of woman people admired from a distance, elegant, composed, and graceful under pressure. She was Leonard's complete opposite. Where he was quiet and analytical, she was expressive and magnetic. They'd met 12 years ago at an art gallery. He trying to understand modern sculpture, she explaining the beauty of ambiguity. Together, they were what people called a power couple. Leonard's career afforded them a mansion in Darien, Connecticut. Dana, once a passionate art curator, had shifted to managing their household and dabbled in interior design. To outsiders, their marriage seemed ideal, balanced, harmonious, enviable. But lately, something had shifted. It started with missed calls and short, clipped answers. Dana was no longer curious about Leonard's work. She used to pore over his stories of corporate deception with genuine interest. Now she barely lifted her eyes from her phone. She started going out more. Charity galas, weekend retreats, gallery launches, often without inviting Leonard. Still, Leonard brushed off his unease. They were both busy. Maybe they just needed a vacation. Then came the glitch. It happened during a routine audit for a pharmaceutical giant suspected of misreporting assets. Leonard had developed a custom algorithm to flag suspicious vendor payments. One vendor name popped up, Cassidy Haven Interiors. It triggered nothing unusual in the corporate ledger, but something about it felt familiar. That night, Leonard scrolled through Dana's Instagram. A recent post, her latest project, a luxury lounge renovation, had a tagged location, Cassidy Haven Interiors. Coincidence? The next morning, Leonard cross-checked the business profile. Cassidy Haven was a boutique design firm based in Greenwich. Dana wasn't just tagging them. She was listed as their creative director. Strange. Dana hadn't mentioned going back to work. She had said she wanted a break, time to recenter. Leonard felt a knot twist in his chest. He drove to Greenwich under the pretense of a client lunch. Cassidy Haven's storefront was sleek and subtle. Glass panels, muted lighting, minimalist. Signage. He watched from across the street. Around noon, Dana stepped out with a man Leonard didn't recognize. Younger, tall, well-dressed, the kind of man who belonged in lifestyle magazines. They laughed, close, too close. Leonard didn't confront her that night. Instead, he turned inward, like he always did. He searched public records, company ownership, documents. Cassidy Haven Interiors was co-owned by Dana Caldwell and Eric Weller, a name Leonard hadn't heard, but whose digital footprint was rich. Former hedge fund manager turned venture capitalist. Wealthy, single. Known for investing in boutique firms and flipping them for profit. The betrayal wasn't just emotional, it was financial. Leonard began digging deeper. Over the past 18 months, nearly $1.7 million had been funneled discreetly from their joint accounts into shell companies Dana had set up. He traced them. Valmont and Coopers, Ardena Holdings, Castile Estates, all layered under offshore LLCs registered in Belize and the Cayman Islands. Leonard felt the ground shift beneath him. Every signature matched Dana's. She hadn't just been hiding a relationship, she had been building a financial exit strategy. That night, Leonard stared at her while she slept, the woman he had loved, trusted, defended, even to his skeptical mother, was slowly dismantling the life they had built, and she wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. He took a leave of absence from work. His official reason? Burnout. The real reason? War. Leonard used every tool in his forensic arsenal. He recovered deleted emails, secured hidden USB backups, and accessed private cloud storage. What he found was staggering. Dana and Eric had been planning to launch a luxury art and interior conglomerate. Dana was the face. Eric was the financial muscle. Leonard. He was the piggy bank. Their pitch deck included pictures of Leonard's properties as design prototypes. His name was listed on a silent investor's slide. The irony was almost cinematic. But the final blow was a message chain between Dana and Eric, dated just 2 weeks ago. Dana. L will never know. He's too busy chasing numbers to see the truth. Eric. Let him fund the dream. We'll cut him out when it's time. Dana. Already halfway there. Leonard saved the thread. His hands were shaking. He couldn't sleep that night, couldn't eat the next morning. He wasn't sure if it was heartbreak, humiliation, or rage that consumed him. Probably all three. But Leonard Kessler didn't scream. He didn't cry. He calculated. By day 3, he had quietly frozen 3 of their shared business accounts. By day 5, he had hired a private investigator to tail Dana and Eric, confirming their travel plans. They were going to Florence next month for an international design expo, Dana had said. By day 7, he started writing a report, a confidential brief meant for law enforcement and federal financial regulators. Only one person had the power to shut Dana down legally and thoroughly. Leonard Kessler, and for the first time in his life, he wasn't chasing someone else's fraud. He was hunting his wife. Leonard sat at the oak desk in his home office, eyes locked on the glowing screen. Spreadsheets, asset trails, shell companies, it all came naturally to him. But this time, the numbers weren't abstract, they were personal. Each dollar siphoned was a betrayal, a calculated insult from the woman he once believed he would grow old with. By now, Leonard had a full picture. Dana's exit plan had been orchestrated with surgical precision. The layered accounts, the forged permissions for wire transfers, even the conversion of funds into digital assets. It was the kind of scheme Leonard would typically unravel for clients. Except this time, he wasn't the outsider investigating someone else's lie. He was the mark. He called in a favor from a trusted friend, Alan Drexler, a white-collar crime attorney who owed Leonard from an old embezzlement case. Alan wasn't just good. He was discreet. I need to make sure what I have can hold up, Leonard said over a secure line. Alan's voice was low. Leonard, this is rock solid. She's committed multiple federal offenses. Wire fraud, money laundering, tax evasion. This is serious. Leonard closed his eyes. I want to proceed quietly. No arrests. Not yet. You want leverage, Alan guessed. Yes. I want her to see everything she thought she built. Burn. Meanwhile, Dana remained oblivious. Or maybe she just didn't care anymore. At breakfast, she smiled and chatted as if everything was normal. She mentioned her upcoming trip to Florence and asked if Leonard could water the indoor plants while she was gone. He nodded. Of course. But inside, he was dismantling her empire one account at a time. Over the next few days, Leonard initiated a cascade of silent strikes. First, he withdrew his name from the silent investor agreement Dana had forged. His attorneys filed a cease and desist against Cassidy Haven Interiors for unauthorized use of his financial identity. The fallout was instant. Dana received a notice. that one of her primary investors had backed out due to regulatory concerns. Her meeting with a venture firm in New York was canceled. Next, Leonard triggered an IRS review, anonymously, of course. He submitted a dossier packed with evidence pointing toward Dana's suspicious earnings and foreign transfers. An audit was now inevitable. But he wasn't finished. Through Allen, Leonard acquired access to Dana's digital contract with a European firm that had agreed to sponsor the Florence launch. Buried in the paperwork was a morality clause. Any association with criminal activity would result in termination and public disclosure. Leonard forwarded the brief. No signature, just the evidence, enough to spook anyone. That night, Dana stormed into the house, heels clacking like gunshots across the marble floor. "Leonard," she hissed, "someone leaked our financials to the IRS. Cassidy's investor pulled out. Florence might be canceled." He looked up from his book, feigning concern. "That's awful. Any idea who'd do something like that?" She narrowed her eyes. "You wouldn't know anything about this, would you?" He smiled gently. "Me, I'm just an accountant." Dana's gaze sharpened. For a brief second, Leonard saw panic. Then it vanished, replaced by practiced poise. "I'm going to fix this," she said, turning on her heel. "Whatever this is." He watched her go, heart thumping. Part of him still wanted her to confess, to cry, to apologize. But Dana never had the decency of guilt. She was too polished, too strategic. 2 days before her planned departure to Florence, Dana called Eric. Leonard, of course, was recording everything. "I think Leonard knows," she whispered. Eric laughed. "He's not going to do anything. He's too passive. You said it yourself." "Yeah," she said, uncertain. "But something feels off. Look, the money's already moved. We're covered. Just get on the plane and let's launch this thing. After Florence, we can disappear from all this." That was the final straw. Leonard printed transcripts, emails, and transaction reports. He arranged everything in a black leather folder and placed it on Dana's desk with a single note. "This is everything. I want a divorce. You have 48 hours to sign the settlement, or I go public." He didn't wait for a confrontation. He left early the next morning and checked into a quiet hotel outside of town. For the first time in weeks, he felt something like peace. By the afternoon, his phone buzzed. It was Allen. She signed. "No contest. Your terms are approved." Leonard let out a slow breath. The mansion would be his. So would the vacation home in Martha's Vineyard. Dana's new company would dissolve, and the funds would revert. All her assets, seized or frozen, pending investigation. But she wasn't going to jail. Not yet. He wasn't finished with her. 2 weeks passed. Dana Caldwell was no longer the shimmering centerpiece of charity galas or luxury interior design expos. Cassidy Haven Interiors had filed for bankruptcy. The Florence launch was canceled with a terse statement about unforeseen legal complications. And as the media began to circle the ruins of her once flawless brand, Dana vanished from public view. But Leonard wasn't content with destruction. That had never been the point. What he wanted, what he needed, was clarity, closure. He needed to understand why. On a rainy Wednesday afternoon, Leonard found himself standing outside a minimalist cafe in Manhattan's East Village. Dana had agreed to meet. Her response to his message had been brief. 1 hour, no lawyers, just the truth. He walked in and spotted her instantly. Dark sunglasses, scarf wrapped tightly around her neck, no makeup. She looked smaller somehow, shrunk by defeat. He sat down across from her. Neither spoke for a long moment. Finally, Dana broke the silence. "So, you got what you wanted?" "No," Leonard said calmly. "I got what I needed." She gave a bitter chuckle. "Right. The moral high ground." He looked at her, eyes steady. "You could have left. You could have told me you wanted out. But instead, You chose to betray me in silence over the years. You turned our marriage into a business transaction. Dana stared at her coffee. Because I knew you'd let me go if I asked. Quietly, graciously. And I didn't want grace. I wanted power. The honesty stung more than any lie she'd ever told. You remember that first client I got? She continued. The one with the Art Deco penthouse? Of course, Leonard said. You were ecstatic. I was terrified, she said. Terrified that I was nothing without your money. That if I failed, everyone would see what I saw in the mirror, an accessory with ambition. So I made sure I'd never need your permission again. Leonard's fingers curled slowly around his mug. By stealing from me? No, she said softly. By becoming you. By outsmarting you. For a moment, they just sat in silence. The rain outside had eased into a mist, coating the windows, like frosted glass. I loved you, Dana, Leonard said, voice low. I still don't understand how someone who shared a bed with me for 10 years could be so calculated. Dana looked at him, her mask faltering. I did love you. Maybe I still do. But I've always been more loyal to the version of myself I wanted to be than to the people who helped build her. Leonard nodded slowly. So this was always about you. I didn't mean to hurt you, she added. But once I started, it got easier. You never questioned anything. You were always predictable. And you mistook loyalty for weakness, Leonard said, standing. That's your biggest miscalculation. Dana looked up at him, a strange mix of regret and defiance in her eyes. So, what now? You've burned everything I built. I'm a social pariah. You win. Leonard leaned down slightly. This wasn't about winning. This was about reminding you that actions have consequences. You hurt the wrong person. He turned to leave, then paused. One last thing. Cassandra filed a complaint against you. Dana blinked. What? She was just your pawn, right? The affair with Gregory was supposed to be leverage in case you needed to push me harder. You used her, too. But she flipped. Dana's jaw tightened. Leonard smiled faintly. Turns out betrayal doesn't inspire loyalty. She gave the feds everything. Timestamps, voice messages, account info. Enjoy dealing with that fallout. Left the cafe without looking back. 6 months later, the sun warmed Leonard's skin as he sat on the porch of his Martha's Vineyard cottage. A fresh breeze carried the scent of saltwater and lavender. The world felt quieter now, calmer, balanced. He'd returned to work at a boutique forensic firm as a senior consultant, not for money, but purpose. Helping others uncover the truth felt like redemption. A letter arrived that morning from a federal agency. Inside was a case update. Dana Caldwell had officially been indicted on multiple counts of financial misconduct, including fraud and international tax evasion. Sentencing was pending. Leonard folded the paper and stared out at the sea. He felt no triumph, just finality. His phone buzzed. A message from Alan. She took a plea deal. 3 years. White-collar facility. Probation afterward. Leonard typed back, "Let justice do its job. I'm done." He meant it. Later that evening, as golden light spilled across the horizon, Leonard opened his journal and began to write. Not as an accountant, not as a strategist, but as a man who had survived betrayal and emerged with his soul intact. Some debts can't be paid in dollars. Some audits happen in silence, and the truth they reveal isn't about numbers, but people. He paused, then added, "And sometimes the greatest closure is not revenge, but the ability to live freely beyond the wreckage." He closed the journal, set it on the table, and took a deep breath. For the first time in years, Leonard Caldwell felt unburdened.